Hi guys, George here. I recently read an article called Holding the Ridge, and it was authored by Martin Shaw. I believe Mr. Shaw was a playtester for Squad Leader, and he made a pretty interesting analysis about Scenario 5. I'm going to post a link below. Here's the PDF. So basically, in Scenario 5, there are retreating Germans that are supposed to stave off a Russian wave attack uh, and hold them away from capturing the top three levels on the hills in board two. You can see the victory conditions here. According to uh, the author, the Russians should basically set up here. So you have a uh, left flank, you have a leader here, and here you have two machine guns with two squads. He was using second level and entrenchments. Usually when we play this scenario, uh, we don't play with all the rules. We only play with the rules up to scenario 4, and up to scenario 4 you don't have second level yet, and you don't have entrenchments. So he, instead of putting the leader up here to get a -1 modifier, he's using the leader to move up three Russian squads. And now what I did with this is I created a log and tried to recreate the moves that were written in his article in the Vassal module. So you have a left flank, a center attack, and a right one, led by the 8-0 leader here. And what are these two units doing here? They're eventually going to dazzle up here. Now, interesting setup. Instead of trying to find points around the map where he can uh, fire in different directions, so it would keep it would keep the Russians from advancing onto board two. He basically did what I did in the last time I played this, and uh, put most of the squads with a leader. Now, interesting point. The SSR in scenario 5 states that at start the uh, the Germans uh, have to undergo a normal morale check, not subject to desperation morale or a double morale check, I believe. I could be wrong about that. However, what's important to note is that what happened here is that you would think that the Germans, the next phase they could rally would be in their rally phase, but no. Um, uh, well, it's on turn. It's on the turn one. Right. They can pass and rally at the same time. They can pass the. They can. In other words, what the SSR says, after start setup, German must check morale in each unit. Those failing the normal morale check must start as broken units, but need not roll desperation morale the next time they attempt to rally, unless they are fired on since the preceding rally phase. So in essence, at start means you can start broken or in good order, and then during the immediate turn one rally phase, those leaders, if they're not broken, can rally the German squads. Now, he advocated a setup quite similar to what I had, which is setting them up in an area where they can rally. My setup was a little bit different than this. Uh, I'm gonna post an AAR hopefully in the near future where I can show you the initial setup. And he's basically going to attack along three lines. And where it seems most logical to advance for the German player, I mean for the Russian player, is along these two wheat fields. Establish a fire group here in these woods here, and try to evict the German from here, go across the board to these woods, and then use the natural terrain here to make a pincer movement on the hill. He isn't advocating that. So let's go through the log and see what is going on here. Now, mind you, I may have made some errors in the setup, but let's see. So let's go, and I didn't advance the turn counter. I was just reading and moving the counter. So uh, it does say that the article does say that you should expect an average of 2 German squads breaking. And that's what happened when I actually played this scenario against the live opponent. And now what we have is the leader, the 9-2 leader, advancing into the heavy machine gun. And a squad trying to advance into the stone building here. And it's interesting. At the same time, he is retreating the units on the south side of the board. So let's continue. And now, basically, the other thing is advocating is the half track um, with the anti-tank gun should take a position up on 2Q7. I was just trying to see if that movement made sense. You have to note that the half track, if it's towing uh, a anti-tank gun, pays double the cost, and it needs to start the phase to dismount the anti-tank gun. It needs all its movement factors available at the start, and thereafter, it can expend the remaining half of its movement points, which is along the lines of what happens in ASL more or less. I must have forgotten to remove those DM markers. But basically here, what Shaw is supposed to do is leave that squad behind, but not the radio. He is supposed to take the radio with them. Right. Okay. Let's continue. Oh, there it is. I put the radio. This is the advance phase, end of turn 1. They should have similar dispositions to this, more or less. Here we go. And establish radio contact. Put the AR right in front of Staller. Alright. And now this is the beginning of Russian turn 1. They're making great headway. And that's the flaw of this strategy. You're basically leaving the Russians unimpeded to, I wouldn't say it's a flaw, but it is a drawback. Okay, you're leaving the Russians unimpeded to move forward. And you could ask yourself, I mean, what choice do you have at setup, especially if you risk starting broken. So here's the Russian player moving up. And obviously moving through the wheat fields, although there's hardly anybody that can fire out in you. Um, it looks as viable. There I misread the text. Those squads would be mince meat, I would suppose, if the German player fired here. Anyway, so on with the Russian advance. I wasn't sure if there was supposed to be a squad here or not. I just put a question mark. Um, from my perspective, there appears to be an error in the article. but I could be wrong. Now, this is brilliant because the 8-0 basically can advance right up to this area here, right off the bat, and that's good headway. Here they're saying, okay, you're gonna fire uh, here, I believe from the squad here. That has clear LOS. We can check it. It doesn't, see? It doesn't. Now, that was an error, I believe an error in the article. Um, it could be an error on the Vassal map, but it clearly touches the wood, so I don't know why he said there would be a line of sight there. And now what these squads are doing, these two loners up there, is they're going to advance in the woods to try to immobilize the tanks that are going to move in here. Well, I find that problematic because rolling a 3 or how much is it? A 4? 3 or 4, whatever the case might be. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's almost improbable. Now, the article is pretty good about uh, describing the German and the Russian initial moves. But I believe after uh, turn 2, uh, let's take a look at the article again. So you got German turn 2, Russian turn 2. Now German turn 3, German turn 4, German turn 5. What happened to the Russians? Conclusion. Uh, well, I bet you the Russians probably won by now because they've managed to form uh, fire groups with superior firepower and close the range with the Germans. So, like I said before, this is a drawback, but it's not a flaw to the strategy. Now, when I played this scenario, I said, okay, I'm going to have um, a reverse slope strategy, and I basically took the positions, tried to take the positions here, which is this is a very good fortification hex. Here, 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 and here. And for some inexplicable reason, I rushed a German 838 down there, which was probably not a good idea. Uh, had I had been more lucky with the die rolls, there was no way any Russian squad could have occupied anything up here unless there were wrecks to stave off the superior uh, German leadership modifiers. Anyway, let's go on with this strategy. So let's see where it takes us. So this is the end of Russian turn 1 advance phase. We are basically, this squad here, I'm hesitant to see what the heck happened there. Oh, well, I think the HMG did not have LOS to begin with. There. Doesn't have LOS until he jumps into these woods here. And then he would have to route this way. Nice. Okay. Moving right along. The Russian leader here will has to find a place where he can rally troops. He cannot rally them in the uh, in the wheat field here. I'm used to calling it now grain, but anyway. And excuse me, this hex here is not an optimal hex to rally troops as long as the leader here is in good order. I like the fact that he put the spotting round on here. He can fire it here. He can fire it there. And he can probably fire it here, but not there. Let's take a look at that hex there. Nope. Here, 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 not there, here, not there, but here. He basically can control uh, most of everything. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now let's continue. All right. So you see the fire group on the south edge of the board here, the German fire group, trying to get in a better position. The he advocates that the 75 should come down here, but I find it problematic. Problematic. Very problematic that it can reach there. And why not put it in O6 instead? Here you go. Now, as for the uh, strategy of putting two medium machine guns up there, it's not a bad idea, but the most you can get if the Germans are set up more than 10 hexes away, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, is a 4. A 4 plus 1 without a leader, or a 4 plus 2, uh, or reduce that by 1 if you prefer to take your 9 minus 1 leader and leave him there. And then that forfeits 3 squads from moving 6 movement points. So there's a lot of choices to be made here. Let's move along. Now, he advocates that the tanks take these positions here. And forgive me, I'm messing around. He also advocates to do an overrun there. Guys, you do an overrun there. Uh, for one squad, you have they have 2 chances of immobilizing your tank instead of moving to the position you need to go to. So, oh, there he goes. He did the overrun, and now I'm trying again. There, that's how the author advocates for you to move. There you go. Interlocking fire. Well, that's not a bad idea. Um, that's not a bad idea at all. It's all a matter of knowing. There you have one squad, one tank hull down. Now he doesn't talk about how to move the Russian players' tanks at this point, but you have a choice: either trying to overwhelm the Russian player, the German player, or taking the high ground and taking pot shots at them. Personally, I just did any old thing here, but personally, what I would advocate is, all right, most of his tanks are there. Tanks can see through wheat fields, but hey, it's a moving target, and go attack him from one flank and work yourself from right to left. That's what I would advocate. That's what my opponent would have done to me. And now, by turn 5, let's see what's going on here. I didn't go on to even discuss this because in order to best deploy these units, they can deploy from any road hex here. Um, you'd have to know what was the standing of the game with the Russians. Are you going to do a frontal assault, a left flank, a right flank? So he's advocating taking position with the heavy machine guns and the medium machine guns up on the hill, and hopefully you'll have a wreck to hide under while you're up on that hill. Um, yep. Well, definitely you need to deploy these engineers in areas where is no Russian armor, and you have to advance them into onto their positions if they're advancing into the open. Otherwise, you're going to get incur a -2 modifier. Um, yep. So, and the other thing that's important to note is that pay attention to the portage points. There's only 5 portage points allowed, and the heavy alone is something in itself. Keeping the leader in this scenario in a half track is not a good idea because with the Russian armor, they get a -5 modifier. So rather than incurring on a -5 modifier, he's better off either in the open or in a position to call down artillery, and ward off the Russians on the hill. So basically, keeping those two radios alive, I would say, is crucial to winning this game. Playing your German armor as well is another imperative. When I played as the Russians, the T-34s just made mincemeat of the Panzer IVs because basically you have armor superiority. And if you're using the T-34s against the German armor, they have no chance. If you're firing the tanks at the German infantry instead of letting the infantry do that job, I think you're pretty disadvantaged. So it's a pretty good article and a pretty good read. Um, a friend, Todd Reed, asked on the Classic Squad Leader Facebook page, why is this an interesting game? And the answer I gave him was that the Germans here are are in a very challenging position to win. They have insurmountable odds once these squads form uh, effective fire groups and have advanced uh, steadily into proper positions. And there's at least one, two, three areas where they can advance and score some good hits on the German player that is trying to hold the line here. Um, and if you win as a German player, it is quite a bit of a rush, to be honest with you. Um, and I would like to hear if anybody has won as a German player here. So those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video, and like or comment below. Thanks. Bye.